Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Adair Live. We will be hosting these every week featuring experts from the home building industry to help you better understand the ins and outs of building your dream home on your land. My name is Gabby, and I'm part of the marketing team here at Adair. We have Jay back again. So excited to have you again this week. How's your day going so far, Jay?
Good. It's a beautiful day outside. Ready for spring to get here.
Yes, me too. Today we're going to be talking about just submitting permits and jurisdiction visits. So we'll be monitoring the chat the whole time. Just let us know where you're watching from and tell us if you're building or wanting to build. And then whatever stage you're in, we want to hear from you, and we'd love to hear any questions that you have. So if you have any questions at all about the home building process, doesn't have to be specifically about what we're talking about today. Just put those in the chat and we will get started. So with just submitting permits and just kind of these jurisdiction visits, um, what if I just have no idea where to start? Can you help me complete this, or at least maybe tell me who to talk to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that one of the most unsure aspects, or some would say complicated aspects, is getting the actual permitting completed to build on the property. Whatever builder you choose to do with or do business with, should be able to have access to help you through every step of that process. Some builders will say it is your responsibility to apply for the building permit. Builders like Adair, we help pull together the entire building permit application. And then, there are also other builders that just do everything on behalf of the client as well. And then generally there's a fee associated with that. But yeah, at a very high level, engaging with the building department is super important.
Okay. And then our next question I had was for like the whole process, why wouldn't a dare or maybe a builder gather all the information just themselves, since they are the ones maybe like building the home?
Yeah. So, one of the things I would say up front when it comes to like feasibility and like who's gathering what information, a builder is going to be responsible for what's known as the building permit, right? It is their structure that they are building on the property, and so the builder would generally engage and get all the paperwork done for the building permit. But there are other things that could be in play where a building permit would not be issued, right, until a septic permit has been issued, right? Because a jurisdiction will not say, okay, let's go build a home on this property. Your building permit has been approved, if there's no game plan yet on how we're going to put a septic system on this lot, as an example. So depending upon the builder that you're doing business with, right, if it's more of a homeowner's responsibility to look into things like the septic system on the property, then the septic installer, right, whoever the homeowner is contracting to have the septic designed and installed through, they would generally be responsible for getting that piece of the permitting done, which is known as the septic permit. And then once that septic permit gets signed off or included as part of the building permit, then the jurisdiction will know, yep, as an example, good, sewer's been taken care of or septic's been taken care of, great, that we'll just check that box, and that's one step closer to getting your building permit approved. And I will say, Gabby, I know there could be a lot of questions here, but when it comes to understanding the cost, there's also things around like planning and zoning, right? And these things can be very confusing up front to customers or clients. Like, listen, I just know what floor plan I like, and I just want to be able to build it on this lot, right? It's my property, right? Well, unfortunately, your building department will have a very particular opinion, depending upon where you live, on what structures can and cannot be built there. And this is super important as part of your planning phase to engage with a builder that helps you through this, gets you in contact with the right people at the county or planning department, because they might say things like, Gabby, I'm sorry, you have a height restriction on this lot. So that 2-story home that you really wanted to build, it would not be permitted. Okay. Or based on your height restriction, we just have to modify your roof. You can still build a 2-story. However, we have to modify your roof to be beneath your height restriction. Okay. Other things could come into play that are awkward, like minimum number of glazing on the front elevation of the home. And most of us are like, great, what does that mean? Right. Well, glazing is like windows or glass, right? And some jurisdictions want to get very clear on how many windows they'd like to see on the front of the home. They'll get very clear on things like maximum garage coverage on the front of the home. So the garage can only be a certain percentage of the front elevation of the home. So all that to say, lots of interesting things that we need to look at, and your builder needs to get comfortable with upfront. So we know that this floor plan and this project that we're putting together, is it something that the building department is going to be in alignment with? And I'm sure you're going to ask me questions about HOAs, but that's kind of another layer of people or organizations that might have a specific opinion onto what kind of structure you actually can and cannot build on the property.
Okay, yeah. Lots of little things, it seems like, to get together. What if I can't maybe get all the information from the county or city? Does that mean I can't maybe schedule a property evaluation or just move forward in the process?
Well, no, I mean, I would say that any family that is looking forward to building a new home, I would say engage your builder, get involved, ask good questions. The builder that you choose should hopefully set you up for success. I know here at Adair Homes, we actually take pride in helping our families through that process. For those of you that are, live today or watching the video, most jurisdictions will allow or offer website services, so you can see kind of what is required in that particular jurisdiction. The real issue is that it unfortunately comes down to your tax parcel. So even though you're in the same county, because your tax parcel is slightly larger, well, then it falls into this category, not that category. But all that to say, if going online is a little frustrating and we're not getting the answers that we need, the best practice period is to actually schedule a meeting and to actually go down and sit with a land use planner at the jurisdiction, which I know does not sound like fun. However, they will do a very good job of saying, okay, show me what you want to build. And the land use planner should be able to go through, and he or she will mark up and say, okay, based on your planning requirements, these are the things that you're going to need to keep in mind. But no reason to delay. I would say definitely engage your builder today.
Okay, perfect. I know this next question, it comes up a lot, and we even talked about it in a meeting with Adair a couple of weeks ago, but why would someone need approval from the fire department to build a house?
It's a great question. So when it comes to fire particularly, right, there is local fire flow and local fire code requirements. And those are dependent upon, access and, quite frankly, how close there's a fire hydrant. So if there's a fire hydrant within X number of feet of the home or the property rather, right, then certain fire flow codes would apply. But let's consider yourself out on a little bit more rural property where the likelihood of a fire hydrant being clear or local is not the case. Then it's going to come down to access. So if I'm the fire marshal, can I get my fire trucks in there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if your driveway is really narrow? What if your driveway is really steep, like greater than X% grade? What if there's a switchback or two in the driveway? And if the fire marshal deems that, hey, Gabby, I'm sorry, based on access to your property, our fire trucks cannot. I mean, we do not have access. That's okay. But now, like you just suggested, what's going to happen is that your builder now, we have to put in a fire suppression system in the home, which is essentially a large pressurized holding tank. And in the event of a fire, right, it actually trips the system. And this entire tank, essentially with internal sprinklers, sprinkles the home to help, mitigate the fire and protect your family. But
Yeah.
all that to say, yes, fire flow is something that is one of the things that definitely needs to get figured out on the property,
Mhm.
depending upon the jurisdiction that you're in.
And then going off the adding like these sprinklers, does that add to the home cost, and how much would it add to kind of like the final cost?
That's a great question. So there's so to answer the question directly, yes, there's an added cost, right? So my understanding is any builder that you're engaged with and looking to do business with, they'll have a base price of their home. However, a builder can't, plan for absolutely everything, especially a builder who doesn't own the property, and we're not even sure where the customer's asking us to build the home. So generally, things like fire suppression could sneak up and be an added cost on a customer. That's why it's so important to be upfront during that feasibility study when the customer's still thinking about it, getting their mind around it, pulling their budgets together. That's the time to make sure that you're crossing those T's and dotting those I's. Because depending upon the size of the home, fire suppression could, it could be $20,000 or more, depending. So.
Okay, that's good to know. Um, and then how much would, I guess, permits cost if they cost anything in the first place? And how long will they take to be approved, just so homeowners kind of know that first step in the process of getting those permits?
Interesting question. All right. So cost and timeline. So generally, that is going to have to do with the size of your building jurisdiction. Okay. So if there is a building jurisdiction that is, and you're in a very, very, booming area where there is, a lot of growth, urban and or rural growth, then your building department is under a lot of fire. They are processing a ton of building permits. And so those timelines could absolutely be extended. I would say that this is not a perfect science, but I would say the closer you get to those big cities, right, then generally the longer it takes for your your permit cycle times. When it comes to cost, on the costing side, think of it like this: most building permits, right, are a function of the services that are going on in that community. So if you're building in I'll just exaggerate. If you're building in a very rural community where there's literally not even a hospital and the closest Walmart is still like 15 minutes away, okay? Um, and there's not a lot of parks and there's like one small school, right? Your building permit is going to be much less, right? Generally, the building permit fees and the cost of the permit, those are known as impact fees. So, what are all of the things that are being impacted by this one more home or dwelling getting placed in the community? Okay, so that, I mean, I've seen building permits as low as $750, right? Okay, now let's go to the other side of the coin. You're moving into a very large, growth oriented area. There are literally like 3 schools all within walking distance. There's city parks, and you get to choose which of the 4 hospitals you're going to want to go to should you get ill. And now what's happening is that generally your building permit costs are going to increase and go up, right? Because there are a lot more levies and things going on. So unfortunately, it's kind of the same thing on property taxes as well, right?
Mhm.
the more levies, the more things you have going on, the more things that have to get paid for in that community. Generally, the more cost is associated with your permitting.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
And then what would happen if my maybe permits weren't approved, or if there's errors on the paperwork submitted? What would kind of happen then?
Yeah. So I would say in my tenure in the industry, I'm not aware of a time where a customer made it all the way through the process, and it's like, oh, sorry, your building permit's not approved, right? Um, what happens is up front in the kind of the planning and feasibility stages, that's where you as the customer, the builder, or collaboratively, you're going to the jurisdiction and the building department, the planning department, and you are asking those questions, right?
Mhm.
If you're zoned for well, I'll just use the word zoning, but if there's zoning ordinances around a certain size of a building, right, and the maximum the maximum single story home on this lot cannot be larger than 40% lot coverage, right? But yet you're trying to build a 7,000 square foot home on this small lot. Yes, your permit could be denied, right? I mean, everybody involved should have seen that coming. So your building permit can be denied, but it doesn't mean that the lot's unbuildable. The building department's just saying, hey, can you tone it down? And we got to build a smaller home, right? But I would say, Gabby, that unfortunately, when any builder or consumer applies for a building permit, we all need to be ready for those little nuances, because that land use planner or building permit technician, as they're reviewing the plans, they could come up with what are known as little red lines or nuances or corrections that could cost the customer money, right? Or force us to go back and kind of rethink things and relook at things. Or they could just be insignificant and we're just going to move forward and build the home. So.
Perfect. I know you mentioned at the beginning I'd probably ask you about HOA, so I've on that question now. So would I work on my HOA approval before or after I received my building permits?
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to tell you both. Okay. So prior to engaging a builder or doing anything like that, if the assumption here is that you already own your property, right? Because you are in this HOA, you should get real clear on, okay, well, what structural requirements is my homeowners association, right? HOA, what are they going to require? And outside of the building and planning department, this is totally separate. Your homeowners association could say things like, okay, well, we want the home to look like this in this community, and we want the entire community to have the same feel of exterior kind of facade. So we are mandating that your home will have this much masonry or rock on the exterior of the home, right? And things of that nature. So I would say, Gabby, at a very high level, you want to make sure what the HOA is going to require before you go and start talking to a builder, right? You don't have to, but it sure would be good to at least be aware of what is being required of you.
Mhm.
And then the reason I say after is because before your building permit can get submitted to the building jurisdiction, okay, it must get signed off by your homeowners association. So the homeowners association would be the first approver. They'll sign off, they'll stamp it and say, yep, looks good. Then it can go to the planning and building department for their set of approvals. So I would say that, definitely both. Feasibility on the front end, getting your mind around it. And then on the back end, they still have to be involved because they're the ones that are going to be signing off on it before it goes to the building department.
Mhm. Perfect. And then Would I be able to start working on my lot prep before permits are approved, or should I wait till after they're approved?
So that is jurisdictional specific,
Mhm.
and lot preparation can mean a lot of different things. So there are jurisdictions that will allow you, um, to come in and, clear brush and clear shrubs and, knock down some trees or just kind of get it cleared out, right? And things of that nature. There's other jurisdictions that'll, allow you to punch in a road or access to the property, because quite frankly, those are things that could be done even if you have no intention of building, right? Um, and then, but I would say that it's jurisdiction specific, because there are some building jurisdictions that they just don't want you disturbing, right, the soil or disturbing the property until you actually have a building permit, right? So it really does depend on what you're doing. I would say as a home builder, when you talk about preparing the property, well, we definitely don't want excavation to be completed. And when I say excavation, I mean like opening trenches and opening the actual building permit or the building footprint envelope, right? Doing all that type of work long before the permit is approved or issued, because we don't. No builder wants the excavated building pad setting there, just getting weathered and rained on. So, but great question for your builder. I can say that.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that was my last question I had for submitting permits and jurisdiction visits. So I'll give it a second. If anyone has questions about any part of the home building process, you can leave them in the chat. We can answer them. But I guess while we wait just a minute or two, at least Jay, thank you for answering all my questions so far.
Okay.
And if anyone is interested in learning more about our process, you can schedule some time to talk with our team at the link that's on the screen right now, www.adairhomes.com/schedule. Um, yeah, if there are no more questions, thank you again for being here with us, Jay, and answering all the questions that I had.
You bet.
And
Looking
then
forward to it.
thank you to everyone that came on and watched our Adair Live. We will see you next week for the next Adair Live. Thank you.